and welcome to Linux Saloon. How is everybody?
Yay.
Not too
Doing
bad.
real good.
Doing well.
Yeah, good.
Excellent.
Great. I'm excited for tonight. We got some great things coming up. So I just want to welcome you all to Linux Saloon. It's a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. Each show we're going to have a talk about a Linux project, generally a Linux distribution, but it could be centered around a desktop environment or application. Anything that is Linux, tech, and open source related is on the table for discussion. So I thought I'd kick it off with see if anyone's been doing anything exciting in Linux in the last week. I should have probably hit somebody up before the stream started to see someone had something. If not, just go ahead and fire away at any time.
Well, I had I had an issue with POP this week, our family system. I come home and it's on the busy box, and my son doesn't say nothing to me. Usually he texts me right away, and that picked him up from the gym. I said, when are we going to tell me about the computer? Oh, I was going to tell you sometime later. All of a sudden, the icons, he said, started disappearing. It's the same thing that happened when I was on Peppermint with the Samsung Evo. I thought the hard drive was going, but so far, I did a F disk and rebooted a couple of times, and so far since then we've only had one issue. So it's a brand new. It's only a 4-month-old WD Blue SSD. So I had to play around with that a little bit, and then I've just been doing OBS stuff, preparing for a change on my stream.
Oh, change on your stream, huh? That's tomorrow. So may as well plug it now since we're here.
Come and see the Linux Coffee Clutch, Sunday Linux Coffee Clutch, Sunday morning, 8 a.m. Central Time. And we talk about Linux tech and more, if we're not talking about cats.
Cats and Linux, I guess that kind of goes hand in hand, right? Well, excellent. If anybody else had anything, if not, we can go. We can move it on.
Well, I just thought I'd vent my frustrations of trying to install Optimus NVIDIA on a laptop in Arch Linux.
Oh, yes, please do vent.
It's madness. It's crazy. I can't do it. I give up.
It's that good, huh?
Oh dear.
Seriously. Why is it so hard to get something like that up and running in Linux? Arch Linux is the worst. Ubuntu based, no problem. But I didn't plan on doing this. It just happened. And then I went down the rabbit hole. And I've been doing that all weekend, trying different scenarios, reinstalling fresh, but I don't know. I give up.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
I had a few problems with the Arch installer, the little installer script that they give you nowadays, Arch install or whatever it's called. So
right.
I think going the OG manual way still wins out, at least for me in my book.
Well, I've spun up my own Arch Linux from Easy Archer, and so I've got everything I need on there. It's a very quick install, so that's why I can keep just turning the install fresh and trying these things out. But it's driving me crazy.
I believe it.
Yeah, I've had the opposite issue, especially where hardware is concerned. Ubuntu never seems to work properly on my laptop, which is not good in the case of my case, because I kind of depend on a screen reader and I don't really want it blasting out at top volume in the middle of the night when I'm trying to use the computer.
That's funny. Jinda, what you got your virtual hand up. That's cool.
Yeah, I was more like a question for everybody than what I did. I was playing with my Raspberry Pi, and I was wondering what people do, when they install their operating system. I did ZRAM on it, and I overclocked it, of course. I was wondering what anyone else does to improve the performance of it. Or you have no opinion of it, that's fine. It don't matter. I was just curious.
I don't have an opinion yet, but I'm going to overclock it once I figure out how to plug the fan in. I don't know how to do that just yet.
I have it sitting here. I got to take it apart to see what pins I put the plug on the fan on.
Which
Yeah, 'cause I don't-
Raspberry Pi do you have?
I have the 4.
Jinda?
Oh, 4.
Okay, because I have 8 gig. I honestly did nothing to it because all it does is run a Octopi server, so it doesn't really need to be overclocked. But I do have a Rock Pro 64. I tried overclocking it and got instability. So what I did instead is the fans on it. Initially, it was either it's always on or it's always off. There is no in between.
Yep.
So I just wrote a little script that kind of gives me a fan curve. It's hit or miss, but it worked. Haven't used the thing in a long time.
You gotta, so it's a aluminum case. And as far as overclocking goes, I don't overclock anything. I've years and years ago, I attempted it with different systems and stuff like that. And to me, the performance gains that you get when you're doing overclocking is not worth it. It's not beneficial enough to deal with all the trouble of actually doing it, getting the everything tweaked just right, so you do not get the instability issues. Yeah, there's no reason to, if you're going to buy a system that you think you have to overclock, save up your money and buy a better system. That's what I say. But yeah, overclocking is not worth it to me.
Dan, I see that virtual hand.
Not to distract from the Pi conversation, but I just had a comment for Colin and his Optimus woes. I don't know how hung up on Arch you are, but maybe Manjaro is an option because I know they have their own tool for that.
Right. No, I'm not. I'm not really hung up on Arch, but I've just got the one laptop here, and I sort of I try things out.
Yeah,
on
no,
that
I get you.
Because but I could run it without it because I want to install something else on my main system, so I wanted to use that and try and use the graphics card. If I have any problems with the main system, I can do some editing on this. That was the whole reason. But
I got you.
Yeah, but I can install an Ubuntu one, be up and running in no time. But I just, for some reason, just this weekend wasted a lot of time running down the rabbit hole, chasing that thing. I just happened to come across it, and it's just
I
one
think
of those.
we've all been there. No, I get that. No, definitely. But that's how you learn too. So yeah,
it is. It was just like this challenge popped up to me again, which I've done before, and I thought I'm going to do this again. And I thought, why am I wasting my time here?
Yeah, it makes you wonder, right? Yep. Good times.
Yeah. But thanks anyway, Dan.
Yeah. I know they wrote their own tool, obviously, because it's very difficult, right? So that's why they have their own thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all good.
Well, excellent. All right, so for our distro exploration this week, we did Gecko Linux. Now, we have some rules about these explorations. The intent is to talk about the different aspects of the OS that we try and discuss our experience after having used it. This is discussion by which it should only be objective and constructive. It's and any non-objective opinions like this is garbage or it's not really helpful. Rather, if you said, I wish it had this feature or that feature, I really need a certain feature to get this job done, that's more beneficial to other people who are listening as well as developers if they ever watch this. So the point is to highlight the positives. Yes.
Sorry, Nate. I'm pretty sure I've seen a developer in chat.
Oh, good.
I'm
Excellent.
pretty sure I did.
They're welcome to join if they want. We'd love it if they could. If not, I don't like having my face on YouTube either. I just happen to do it. So there we go. But we want to make sure that whatever we say here is benefiting the conversation. So the point is to highlight the positives, but not ignore any lowlights of the project. And remember that this is a labor of love for some, so let's not poo-poo on it. And poo-poo is it's not slang. So
he's chatting to you right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, Cubicle Nate, Gecko Linux creator here. We crossed paths on Reddit quite a few times. Great to see you live. Hoping Gecko Linux behaves itself. Well, I don't want to spoil anything, but for me, I loved it. So, but no spoilers. We'll get to that in a bit. So we had a straw poll on the Linux Saloon Telegram. It says, how is the Gecko Linux exploration going? 11% say Gecko Linux is amazing. Help me save money too. I see the joke there. Well done, Eris. I tip my hat to you, good sir. 39% Gecko Linux is okay. 11% said I'm not having a good time with it. 11% said I'm not interested. 11% said I don't have time for this exploration. 17 are not interested in doing any explorations in general, and there were no other comments on it. So a little bit about Gecko Linux. And so SB, you can correct me at any time. I do check the chat to the best of my ability. So feel free to fire away. But Gecko Linux spins are generated directly from unmodified openSUSE, Tumbleweed, and Pacman packages. Now, not to be confused with the Pacman of Arch. This is a better Pacman. Packages are sourced from those official upstream repositories, and the installed system can be updated directly from those same official sources. Gecko Linux is focused on eliminating the pain points and polishing its unique out-of-the-box configuration on top of the stable and flexible openSUSE base. Proprietary media formats play out of the box. True. Proprietary hardware drivers and firmware support has also been included as much as possible. Google and Skype repositories are also configured out of the box. Third-party RPM packages can easily be installed using the graphical YaST package manager. Now there are several ISO options. I think there's technically there's a lot. Okay, so they have static and rolling, and in both static and rolling they have Cinnamon, XFCE, GNOME, Plasma, Mate, Budgie, LXQt. Pantheon is available in rolling only. And then they have a bare bones install, which the image they use for bare bones is really funny to me because it's just like the skeleton of a chameleon or some sort of lizard. And I laughed really hard when I saw that. So well done there. And they also have a Gecko Linux Next. So it uses the Leap base with the latest desktop environment packages on top for Plasma and Pantheon. So they have lots of options. And Lamer, yes, you are correct. It is but it's an almost unhealthy obsession to the openSUSE project. So of course I like Gecko Linux. Anyone want to have add to that before I move on to the installation process and how it went for everybody? No? Okay. So one of the we can say gripes or maybe rubs that people have with openSUSE is the installer. People they don't like the openSUSE installer. They think it's too complicated. My co-host Matt on Deal and Extend, soon to be Linux Out Loud, he says it's the worst installer ever, and because of the Wi-Fi issue, he's obviously a little bit nuts, but that's okay. But there is the YaST team did announce that they are going to be doing a new installer, or it's called the de-installer project. So basically, they've acknowledged that the installation process needs to be shortened. And they want to decouple the user interface from the YaST internals, and they want to add a web-based interface as well. There was once a thing called WebYaST in the past, but it was not ever meant to work as an installer. So there's a lot of work being done on this. It's kind of in the early stages, but they're rethinking the installer to make it simpler, and which I wouldn't say removes the unique competitive advantage that Gecko Linux has, but I thought it was relevant to bring that up. So I thought, yeah. So if you want to, so there's work that openSUSE is doing because they do acknowledge that the installer. So Calamares is the installer that they used in Gecko Linux to install. You download an ISO of your choice, and then you'd install it from there to make the process very, very easy. So kind of, I would say, akin to that of other distributions like like the Ubuntu flavors. So I am curious to know, what spins or what flavors or which ISOs did you install of Gecko Linux? I did Plasma, and so I know Eris, you said you did bare bones.
Bare bones.
Yep. Okay. And
I
Colin,
did Budgie.
Budgie. Okay. And Colin, you did Pantheon. Is that correct?
No, cinnamon rolling.
I mean, you did cinnamon rolling, correct?
Yep.
Yep.
Exactly what I did. Cinnamon rolling.
I think Rick.
I'm doing the Mate install right now.
Okay. And Rick did Pantheon. I'm guessing. I mean, who else did the installer? Jinda, what did you do?
Gender's
XFC
muted.
I saw he said XFCE. I could read his lips.
Okay.
And it's
But
not a
if I were
requirement.
to use it, I'd probably use bare bones and try it out as and
Yep.
see if I could build it to use stump WM.
Yeah, I can see the bare bones. Like some people just want to do like a build it up themselves. I understand that. I'm too lazy for such things. And then Dan, what did you use? I'm sorry, Alex Cute. Is that what you?
I did
Yeah.
use Alex Q.
Okay. How did I guess?
Yeah, it was a good guess.
And Jason, did you have a chance to install it?
Yeah, I did the same thing as Colin, the rolling cinnamon.
Okay, excellent. Adam, I don't know if you had anything.
Nope.
Nope, that's all right.
Oh, and Nate, I'll just tell you, I typically will try to install in a cloud service such as Vultr or DigitalOcean, and then I always try to get the remote desktop working. So
okay, that's fun.
yeah, because that's that way I can have a desktop in the cloud and I can provision it with either lots of power or very little power.
That's cool. That's actually it's a neat that's a neat way of trying it out. It's a different way than I would do, so that gives you a unique perspective. So I appreciate that, Mark. Thank you very much.
We have all the abilities to do virtual machines and hardware and stuff, but I've been focusing on trying it in the cloud again because you can spin them up, you just destroy them super quick, and you can apply crazy power to them, and you only pay for that 1 hour, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, that's cool. That's a great way to explore. Don't get distracted and walk away, I guess, for doing that, right? Don't throw in there out SB, one of the Gecko Linux developers. He said that there used to be a YaST 2 live installer that they modified that most expected live installer when it decompressed and did the whole live system to the target partition. He says use that for as long as it worked, but unfortunately they deprecated it from there, and so he moved to Calamares. That makes sense. And Red Robo's workshop, just ISWM, but no polish, and it's intended for the end user. Yeah, so the idea of the bare bones is for people who want to install the packages and configure it almost from the ground up. So I guess more the way Hunter said he would like to do that. That's excellent. Now, as far as default applications are concerned, what did you think of those for the distribution or for the desktop you installed? Don't all speak up at once now.
Dan.
Yeah, so I found the choices a bit strange, honestly, because all right, so I did LXQt, and that's a Qt based desktop, and I found a lot of GTK applications, which seemed a little strange to me. Okay. They all worked well, I guess, but for example, some of the applications that are part of the LXQt project, if you will, maybe not the desktop, but part of the project, were not there. So things like the archiver was not there, and in Grandpa was the archiver of choice. So I found that was a little weird. But the other one that struck me was Mousepad, was the text editor that was included, and I would have thought Featherpad might have been the choice because that's from the same developer that is the main developer of LXQt. So or even and I guess if some of those don't strike your fancy, there's probably other Qt based applications that might fit in there a little better. And it's not that you can't run the GTK things, it's just it brings in extra dependencies and probably adds a little more RAM every time you try to load multiple different foundations, if you will. So I don't know, I guess there was some strange choices I thought.
Yeah, SB says in the chat, it says fair enough, I don't have much ideology and went a full featured tool whenever possible, even if it's a light version. So yeah.
There's a difference always about how much disk space you use versus how much RAM you're using. So you can have a lot more things in there, but not a lot of RAM usage at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I thought the Cinnamon desktop had just enough to get going with everything you need in most categories. So I found it okay off the bat.
Okay. I felt the same way about Plasma, that it pretty much had everything, like all the basics. Like you didn't
Yes.
have to install something to get basic Office or basic home office work done. It was all right there.
Yeah.
I think that's a good mix. Rick, what did you think on the application selection for Pantheon?
It's pretty decent. I think it was pretty. Well, it's kind of like if I think straight. Yeah, the different had a base of it that's pretty good, but it's small ISO, relatively speaking. Most that downloaded and stuff. So it's like it had a lot of interesting choices, but some of them were fairly standard. Now of course they borrowed a lot of things from elementary on Pantheon's selection. So like you had the Pantheon text editor, Pantheon, all those kind of things. So it was pretty good overall, I guess. I saw some different things there in place of it, but I kind of appreciate not having a ton of stuff in there too, so you can make choices yourself.
Mm-hmm. Jinda.
Somebody,
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Rick, keep going. I thought you were done.
yeah, I was almost done, but
No, keep going.
yeah, I was going to say that oh well, forget it. I can't remember now.
Oh man, I'm an awful host. Steve, you should probably fire me. Well, when you think of it, just interrupt me next time, okay? It's total. Turnabout's fair play. Jinda, you got your virtual hand up.
Yeah, I did XFCE, and I did think that having mouse pad instead of feather pad was odd, but like everybody cited, what difference does it deep down really make? One of the things I did notice when we went into the file manager in XFCE, it's Thuner.
Mm-hmm.
There was no add-ons for like opening a file in root or opening a folder in root. You had to add those all yourself. Because we just did Mint, and I run MX Linux, and all that stuff is pre-done right out of the bat. So I thought that was kind of strange that it was missing. The other thing that I didn't notice was there's no welcome screen or anything to help you how to use this operating system at all. Like to tell you how to turn on the firewall or install software or where to do things. There was no welcome screen or anything like that. I kind of thought that was a little odd too. I don't know if anyone else noticed that, or it was just XFCE, or I just didn't see a welcome screen.
Budgie didn't have it.
Okay.
Yep.
So
I had it on one install. I installed about 5 times, and I had it on one install, some kind of welcome screen, but I don't know what happened. But the other time I installed it on there, I didn't have it. So I'm sure. Random welcome screen, I guess.
XFCE Thunar's never had open as root though, has it? I'm pretty sure.
Well, it's an add-on. Like we just ran Linux Mint.
Oh, it's an add-on. Oh,
yeah, well,
okay.
you can just type it in. I mean, it's just a couple of, you just type in a command. You know what I mean?
Right.
Right.
Oh, okay.
But most distros today add it to it, like Linux Mint, MX Linux. Actually, most of the ones that we've been testing, I've been using XFCE or KDE, and most of the distros do add it. I mean, if this is set up for a new user, I think they were going to have a hard time with it. Set up for us guys who use it all the time, I think it's fine.
That's fair. I think I know the Plasma didn't have the welcome screen either, and not a big issue to me because at this point I just close it. So to me, I didn't really think about it much. But I do think that the welcome screen is a great tool because it tells like where to get things. Like in Plasma, they didn't include Discover by default, which is fine because in many ways it's kind of broken, especially on rolling. Something with Zipper and rolling and it's Zipper's fine with, I should say, Discover's fine in Leap, but it's not fine in Tumbleweed, which is a problem. But so I didn't have like how would I add applications? How would I add things like FlatHub and so forth. So to me, it's really important that I have access to FlatHub. I mean, again, I can figure it out because I like to live in the terminal anyway. Not a big deal, but you're very right that for a new user that would be more of a challenge for sure.
Yeah, like it was the first time for me ever installing anything that was openSUSE based. And
It was.
was.
Oh, yeah. All
And
this time you've known me, and you haven't even
kind of
tried it?
no, I downloaded the budgie and the one thing about going in, starting it up, the live version didn't show me any progress. I thought everything had frozen. It was like not quite a black screen. I could tell that something was working, but there was no progress, like you normally see on some of the distros when you're going into the live version. I did like that when I set up my Wi-Fi, it remembered it on the installation, but this is the first distribution that ever did not read my Ethernet card. I had to go to
really?
Wi-Fi. It worked with Wi-Fi, but I plug in my Ethernet and nothing. It was telling me no Ethernet's connected.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. So no problems with the Wi-Fi, but problems with the Ethernet.
But I saw with the applications, it was just a basic. I like Clementine. I don't often see Clementine for the sound and audio
for music. Yeah.
So that was a nice pick. But yeah, it was a nice basic startup. And I've never used YaST, so I was just getting you. I think I did a update right before we went live, and I'm off to the side here, and I got YouTube up there, and I'm responding there, so I'm running it on Gecko right next to me.
Cool. Eris.
So I just wanted to highlight what the developer said. He says, "Yep, no welcome screen. Basically, I don't develop software. If it's not available out of the box for openSUSE, Pacman, then I don't ship it." So he just tries to give you all the options with the actual distro itself that's upstream.
I wonder if like the welcome screen that openSUSE now ships, if that could be like the branding removed from that easily for Gecko Linux, since it's all the same stuff on the back end anyway. It wouldn't matter. And like the whole one-click install thing, if you go to software.opensuse.org and search for something there, that all works just as well. So that that's good. As far as like your general user experience, what would you say about your the desktop that you're using on Gecko Linux, Eris?
Well, I just use the bare bones, so I don't. It's the IceWM. It's very light, it's very simple. It's just so that you can install it, and then you have a GUI, and you can have a way of looking up any packages you want. Because usually, if you do like a minimal install, you usually do like a server install when you have like a command line shell kind of interface, and then you gotta search on your own or gotta find a way to search for packages. But this way, it's very light, minimal with the IceWM, and then you can just use Firefox to look up any packages and build up your system that way.
Yeah, I've done that before too. Like for like a server install, I would just install with the bare bones, the Ice window manager, and it's a good way to go, I think, especially when building from scratch or whatever a system. Now Thomas said he's working on it, so he might actually have some input for us later on in the show if he hasn't gotten there yet.
Just got it booted up, haven't installed it yet.
Okay, all right, cool. Jinda, what would you say as far as your general user experience using it, like playing around with XFCE?
Everything was there, everything worked, everything was flawless, except for the fact that I just thought that for a new user, not having any information, right on the screen to help you use it, and a few little things would really turn off a new user.
Okay.
I mean, sure, you can install software, anyone can, but if you don't know how, I don't think there was like an image editor like GIMP or Krita or one of those installed on it. So a lot of companies come with, distros come with that on default, which is fine if you do or don't, it doesn't matter. But if you don't know how to install it, I kind of thought that was kind of odd that there was no information on it, but it did work 100% perfectly. I had no issues with it whatsoever. It was clean. It looked kind of plain Jane, but once again, that's how XFCE comes, which there's no fault of that.
One thing I think the developer could do, maybe making the welcome screens is out of scope for him, but he could make the homepage for Firefox be like a website that he would have with links or information, just but basically could work as a welcome screen that way too. That we might, maybe that could be simpler for him if he wanted to implement that.
Like if Firefox automatically started up or something like
Yeah,
that, like a
default
specific
homepage.
profile, like or like one of those like you can set up additional profiles and just have that pop up as a go to a specific page, like on Gecko Linux.
Hopefully that's not out of bounds for Firefox distribution or redistribution, though.
Oh, could that be out of bounds? Well, I know that openSUSE, they have it go
be.
to a specific page when
Yeah,
it
I don't
starts
know.
up. Yeah. So if
Maybe
OpenSUSE
it is, maybe
can
it
do
isn't. I don't know. It does open to the openSUSE start page.
It does.
So
maybe a different start page. But I guess if he's pulling it from the upstream,
yeah, I don't know.
Then I don't know. Yeah. So many rules.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah, for something that's open source, there are a lot of rules behind it.
And that goes back to being the Mozilla public license, because they control like the image of Firefox and everything. And other GPL products you can just use. I mean, they don't have all these limitations, and that's the big difference between the GPL and the MPL.
Colin, for your budgie.
No, cinnamon.
Cinnamon, but that's what I meant. Cinnamon.
You know that little herb thing you use?
Yes.
For taste.
I thought herb was a dude though, and herb is the.
I sort of put it through its paces a bit because I first put it on VirtualBox. Then I put it on this Toshiba with NVIDIA, so I didn't have any luck installing the NVIDIA with Gecko Linux either, even though it's got the right tools there to do so. So now I'm running it on another different hardware, which is AMD GPU based. So it seemed to cope all right. The only problem I had with this AMD GPU one was, and it's amazing how you get different reactions from different hardware. When I started the live system up, it was asking me for a GNOME keyring and a password, and it would not let me put my password in for my Wi-Fi. And the username by default is Linux, and the password is 0, nothing, right? But nothing worked for this GNOME keyring. I could not. So I tried deleting some of the some of the in Etsy, whatever it is, where the key rings kept. I tried deleting some of those. Eventually, sort of somehow deleted something and worked around it and allowed me to put my password in. But I thought that was a bit odd. Didn't have that on the other hardware. So that was Intel and NVIDIA. So that's really strange. Sort of got around it. The other thing I noticed was when you're opening as root with Nemo, it took a long time to open as root. So I don't know what the issue is there. It's normally not like that. And that was consistent across the board. So, but however, once it's up and running, once I solved that GNOME keyring thing, installs easy, no problem at all. Calamaris, I think everyone's becoming very familiar with that these days. And it's up and running. And now I'm just, having a look at I don't know how far you want me to go with this, but I think we're going to go in steps, are we? But, the YaST control center and software and all that.
Yeah, that's your general user experience, whatever you want to throw in there on that.
Okay, yeah. Well, I like the way the YaST control center works, because you can control so many things when it comes to services starting and stopping and all that sort of thing. A lot more Linux distros should have things like that instead of trying to figure out this system D status and whatever. This thing's just got everything there. You can start, you can stop. It's so easy to do in that regard. So I like the services manager that it has in there, and the software center. It can add the libdvd32 repos as well to make your life easier there. So you don't have to go looking for it. You can just add repos. It gives you suggestions. So I thought that was really good as well. So I really like the YaST tools. I think are really cool. So I think the theming is a little bit outdated for YaST. I've noticed theming is outdated, but hey, it works, does the job.
Yeah, I agree. I think YaST is just absolutely fantastic. And here's where I'm going to get all excited here because, you know, I have this almost unhealthy obsession with the openSUSE project, almost, Matt, is that YaST also works just the same in the terminal. So if you remote into a machine and you just have a terminal interface, it brings up an ncursus interface for YaST.
Okay.
And so you can tab whatever you need to, and use the keyboard shortcuts, which are all right there. So it tells you what you need to do, and it can do all the same amount of work, except in the ncursus interface, and not just you aren't just tied to a GUI. So I absolutely adore that about YaST, that it works so well like that. In fact, not to self-promote, but I'm going to here in just a second. But I did on cubiclenight.com, I did a why YaST is awesome write-up. It was like I made it like I was gonna do like top 10 things. I think I ended up making it like 11 or something like that because I couldn't shut up. And in fact, some of those modules could use a complete like discussion just in and of themselves as to all the features that are packed into it. So it's YaST is really pretty fantastic. There's a lot of people who poo-poo on YaST out there. There was one Linux personality YouTuber type. I don't know if he YouTubes still, but he kind of said that YaST, like, it was really awful, like YaST should die, blah, just kind of like was like yelling at the screen about how awful YaST is. I'm like, wow, this guy, I don't know about you anymore. I mean, it's like some people really, really hard, and there's all these great tools. Because, I can't remember how to do a lot of things like in the terminal, and so I just use YaST, and that kind of short circuits the whole thing.
I think that's a key point. If you didn't know how to do things, I don't know how you're gonna do them. Like just like figure out everything at the moment. And versus YaST, even though it might not be the most approachable once you start using it, but it has everything there. Everything's there somewhere, and you just have to figure out how to navigate it a little bit better.
And some of the defaults. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I do have an answer from the developer here. He says that the USB key on both machines, I've used the same one. He says it saves the session on the USB. So because I've used that on one machine and gone to another, that's why the keyring error came up.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know anything about GNOME keyring. I'm afraid of GNOME keyring, actually. So I just avoid it.
It's okay, at least in my experience. It does the job.
It doesn't change my general fear of it, but yeah.
It normally only comes up when you use auto login most of the time, right? So if you auto login, then you have to put your a name keyring in. But if you log in with a username and password, then it doesn't ask you for keyring. That's my experience with name keyring.
I think there's a PAM setting that you have to set somewhere that will turn that off. And if you log in with auto login, it won't ask you for a password, because I've never seen GNOME keyring ask me for a password for GNOME keyring. I've seen it only ask for passwords with my SSH key and the GPG key, and that's it.
Anyway, Nate, back to you.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. So Rick, as far as your general user experience, how did you get along with it, with Pantheon?
Fine, pretty much, except that YaST, I think, is pretty good overall, and I think I found one thing in it that I thought, oh, cool, so I did that. But overall, as far as updating software, installing software, I was fine with it. But updating my system I couldn't figure out how to do that really. Found some files and updated with it. But then when I did go into the terminal and did an update there, it came with a lot more files. So obviously didn't catch them all. So I probably need a tutorial or something on that or something like that.
Well, you can always ask me. I don't know everything, but I can at least point you to the right resource.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, I think the overall experience is pretty good. Now, there would be hiccups along the way if I was a new user, didn't know much about Linux, that kind of thing. But of course, I'm used to terminal installing things to the terminal and things like that, doing searches. Zipper was pretty good overall. Package manager. So I liked it and I got along with it fairly well enough to install on my main machine over here. Replace my old Neptune OS with it.
What's your show code, Rick? The one you did install and used Gecko Linux?
Yeah, as a not a Linux Career Guys, my channel, and I think as the title of the episode something like Gecko can save you more than money or something like that.
I posted the link on YouTube chat.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. I missed that one. I think I was out that night or whatever.
A lot
But,
of people were, but SB was there.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
But I do like to have your channel on, when I'm kind of relaxing at night. It's not a very not loud,
Okay.
so it's not intense. It doesn't cause my blood pressure to rise at all, so it's great. So just kind of like a kind of like chill. Like when you watch Steve in the morning, he kind of causes your blood pressure to rise a little bit. I mean, it's fine. It's good because you're drinking coffee along with the process. But you're more of an
Jason with the cats.
but Rick, you're just kind of nice unwind.
Yeah.
I don't have any cats. I don't know what you're talking about.
So Dan, what would you say your general user experience was with LXQt? I know that people, if those that don't know, you maintain or you're a developer, maintainer for Ubuntu.
Yeah,
Lubuntu.
Yep, the LXQt, the spin of Ubuntu, Lubuntu. So obviously got some experience with LXQt. I would say it was very good, excellent even, and I think the theming is actually very nice too. It's different, but I liked it a lot. So there was that. I think very current, obviously. So based on Tumbleweed rolling, because that's what I chose.
Mm-hmm.
So latest and greatest LXQt versions, and software is all latest versions. So everything there went well. I would say, like, even so, going to the YaST aspect of it, all of the different modules are available in the menu. You don't have to open up the YaST control menu. You can still see the sub YaST functions, if you will, in the menu. So you can select those without having to dig, too far down. And that was nice having that, I think, available. No, everything went really well for me. I enjoyed it a lot, honestly.
I will say I've run LXQt on some netbooks because, well, LXQt is really light, and so it works really well. And the because they don't have very big screens and there's so many YaST modules, it does kind of flood out the menu. This wasn't with Gecko. I didn't try Gecko, but with openSUSE Tumbleweed on those machines, that has been an issue in the past. So I wonder how. I wonder if there's maybe a way to manage that a little bit better as far as the menus.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could install something to manage your menu entries, if you will. There's a couple different options to be able to do that, and just hide them from the menu. If you wanted to do that, that would probably be something you could do. Basically you're just editing the desktop file that says it's hidden from your menu. And then it still exists, but it's not showing up in the menu. So that would be an option, I guess, if that was a thing. But I kind of liked having them there without having to drill down into the configuration tool itself.
Right. It makes sense. It was just a my
yeah, no,
edge
it makes
case.
sense too. Yeah,
It was
what you
just totally my edge case that I had was that it on these small netbooks, it was a problem on those.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal because those are being held together with baling wire and duct tape anyway, so it's not like it's a big issue. So
I get it though. Like, you're on a little tiny screen and doesn't have a lot of resolution. That would be
Right.
annoying. You're right.
It was fine. You could still get to what you had to do. It just
Mm-hmm.
it could be a little bit jarring.
Mm-hmm.
Jason, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add onto the general user experience.
Well, the general user experience. I mean, I had no issues with the installation. Got in there, like Colin said, it was well rounded because I did the same one he did, the cinnamon, and it's well rounded as far as what they pre-install and all that good stuff. It has the basics, what you need. For me, like Steve, I was new to it's the first time I've ever used a version of Linux that was based off of openSUSE, SUSE, however you say that thing, that green colored Linux distro.
The most beautiful.
And
Yeah.
so, I mean, I didn't even know what the command was. I'm sitting here, I'm thinking that it's, I'm trying, I had to look it up. I said, what does SUSE use for, to do the updates and stuff? I didn't even know what zipper was because, I've never used it before. So I had to, look that up and tinker with that a little bit. But that's just me being, a noob to these type of things. But overall, it's running on my very, 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 very old IdeaPad. I think it's called. Is that an IdeaPad? Yeah, whatever. Yeah, IdeaPad. And it picked up the Bluetooth. It picked up all the other stuff. It just straight out of the box, everything worked. I didn't have to tweak anything. My Wi-Fi was working. All that good stuff. So it's running.
That's great.
What more do you need, right? It's running.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to get from point A to point B as long as it's running. Well, it's running, it's plated, and it's legal, right? Steve.
Yep.
One thing as far as the user experience. So I use my son's old Asus G73 gamer laptop, and it's got a backlit keyboard. This is the first distribution that the backlights don't come on. I tried the function key in that. I looked in the settings as far as it might be a budgie, issue. But I couldn't see anything to turn the backlight keys on. And this is a horrible laptop if you don't have the backlight keys on. So I just was wondering about that.
And you're talking about, when you say backlight, you talking about the keyboard?
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird because,
But and what did you do?
I just installed it.
No, I mean, what distro?
Oh, I did the cinnamon one, yeah.
Cinnamon.
Yeah.
Well, it might be budgie.
Yeah, it must be something in the budget. I never used that version for anything. I never tried that one out, so I couldn't say. But it could be. It could be just. I don't know.
I couldn't say. I've never had backlight keys not light up on any laptop that had backlight.
I hate to say this, but that's what Windows 10 did after an update.
Yeah.
Stopped doing that.
Well, see, that's the thing with this laptop is, I mean, it looks like when it's on the camera, it looks like nice and bright and stuff, and you can see everything. But on the actual system itself, this is the IdeaPad issue, not a OS issue. For whatever reason, the actual lighting, the brightness of the screen cannot be adjusted. It stays at one level. You can't, even in the system or on the keyboard, it won't go up or down unless Windows is installed. Because it's a driver issue with this particular laptop. It has to have a Windows driver to move the brightness, according to whoever makes the IdeaPads.
Lenovo, right?
Lenovo, yeah. So I'm sitting there looking for the name. I'm brain farting on it. But
I have an idea. I have an IdeaPad, like a 110S or S110 or something like that. It's a little, I call it my little crap top that I got at Best Buy for $80 because that like a display shelf item, like in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids have dropped it. It's like, gone through all kinds of falls and spills, and it's like it never even happened. It's like nothing's ever happened to it, and it's not very fast. It's only got 2 gig of RAM, but actually it performs very well. I'll run. I think right now I got Plasma running on it, but like XFCE runs great on it. The only problem with running Plasma on it is like the SDDM. I think like pulls. It's like trying to get some sort of GPU performance out of it, and it just kind of bogs it down. So,
But I'm sitting here playing with it, and none of the function keys work with the FN key, volume or nothing.
Oh man,
yeah, that sounds like it's some sort of it's not detecting the actual, I don't know what.
Every other distribution that I've put on here has been fine.
Yeah, you may have to try to reinstall the budgie on there and see maybe it was something wrong. Like re-download the ISO and reinstall. Maybe it was something in the in the installation that got messed up. It's a possibility.
I know. Oh, I did have an error where it said reboot now after Calamars was done, and all of a sudden it just started scrolling squash FS errors like crazy. and the only way I can get it to stop is I had to pull the battery.
Oh, man.
it died.
Normally, if you have a squash FS error and you're running from a live system, that's going to mean that your ISO was corrupted somehow. I have learned this the hard way by seeing other users' installations. Yeah, typically, if you have a squash FS error, your installation is going to fail, and it's because your ISO is corrupted. Re-download it, double check your MD5 hash sums or SHA hash sums, whichever.
Yeah, Vince asked me if I did that.
I was
"No,
about
don't
to
do
say that Vince told them verify.
Yeah, I think
Almost no one ever does that, but if you have a corrupted ISO, you wish you had done that.
so.
Yeah,
Every
yeah.
time.
SB did give some good advice, and this is actually advice that's worked for me. If you do sudo zipper dup in the terminal, it'll go through and check all your packages and update everything. It might actually correct the issue by doing an update in the terminal like that. I've had more than once where I monkeyed something up and I fixed it just by doing a distribution update. So you can
I'll
try
add
it.
one more thing, at least to Steve's issue. If he hit the reboot, it's possible if you got the squash FS errors after you hit the reboot, that maybe it unmounted it too quickly. So then it couldn't access the USB. So maybe, but I feel like if you're getting those errors, then yeah, something either wrong with your USB or the way it got flashed, possibly.
I would like to point out, though, that doing an update to the entire system will not always fix your fix a squash FS error. It depends on the distro that you're running on. For this one, I'm sure it'll be fine, but not all of them.
I'm saying the way Zipper handles updates, it basically goes through and evaluates everything. It's very aggressive about how it fixes things. So it's actually
I'm just saying, like, it depends on your distro. So it may work. openSUSE, it works, but not everything will work.
So going back to Steve's corrupted ISO, I would have liked a torrent download, and that way it would have been checksum by default, and maybe prevent like an error.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, I went right off the site.
Yeah, I do like the torrent options because that does they do have that sort of check, that built-in check. Now we haven't gotten to Mark yet. He just raised his hand as I'm going to him.
Yeah.
Mark, how was your general user experience?
General user experience was fine. The Monte came up just fine. I got no pop-up error messages, which was good. Nothing, no weird prompts. Again, I don't install a lot of SUSE flavor stuff, so I'm new at that. But I'll tell you, I really like the YaST Control Center UI. I hadn't seen that before, and it allows you to even modify your sudo stuff and your firewall all right there. So I thought that was interesting. I did install my XRDP and I got connectivity, but the sessions are having an issue with actually establishing a session. XRDP's got a thing that I've been running into a lot with various Linux flavors, and that's the you can only have one session, so you can't always take over a session. So you do have to make sure you log out of one session, then otherwise you get this blank black screen. And I haven't fully figured that out, but I know that a lot of times, as long as you close that out, you can you may be able to reconnect. But so yeah, no, I think it looks good.
You might want to check the firewall rules because by default, openSUSE is set to paranoid.
Yep.
So everything is denied by default.
I always configure my XRDP on a higher port. I'll use 33.389 and or sorry, 3.389. You know what I mean. And yeah, the now that part of it, the firewall D and the firewall commands, those are normal with what I'm used to, so that's great.
So the Gecko dev says he thinks it might be an issue with the recommend dependency for RDP, recommended dependency for RDP.
Okay, I'll investigate that. Thank you.
See,
All right. Go ahead.
I have no cat. See, right there.
Oh.
That's not a cat.
He also says don't firewall by default on Gecko Linux, though not necessary since it doesn't have any network services or open ports by default.
Yeah, I actually didn't check that part of it, but I went to go look at it, and it's if you click on firewall, it'll install everything needed to get the firewall going.
Yeah, the
Yes.
firewall did not on the Mate distro I downloaded. After I did the hard drive install, it did not have the firewall enabled, and of course I did enable that.
Well, it's good to know that he doesn't enable the networking things by default, because when I go do my experimentation, either later tonight or tomorrow, I'll have to figure out a way to enable SSH from afar.
Okay. Yeah, the that's actually probably a good way to go. Just don't have any network services available, and then not much.
It is a good way to go, but when you depend on a screen reader and you're doing a bare bones install, you need some way to access the machine.
Right, like secure shell.
Yep.
So as far as areas that you may have found difficult, so Steve obviously had a lot of difficulties, but I'm not going to blame Gecko. It's probably a Steve issue.
Okay, Adam.
Verify, Steve.
So.
Yeah, it's a PEBCAC error. Probably exists between the keyboard and the chair. Yeah.
Or it could be an IDT error too.
And also there was not having a welcome screen was probably a little bit difficult to get, acquainted with the differences, well, with a different environment, basically. What are some other areas they may have found difficult with Gecko Linux? Go ahead, Mark.
My again, not being familiar with SUSE, I keep seeing the word root pop up. So when you do a sudo command, it says enter the root password, and I'm like, no, I'm entering my password, right? Because there is no root password. And then same with the UI pop-ups, keep saying root, and that's something different coming from Ubuntu because it's just enter your password.
Right.
I keep seeing that. I'm like, no, I don't want to enter a root password.
Yeah, I mean, same for me going into this blind because I've never used this version of the distro before. Like I said, I had to go through and I had to use Google a lot just initially because of zip. I didn't know what zipper was, so I didn't know it was a simple sudo zipper. Type this in and go, and sudo zipper and update or sudo zipper upgrade or whatever. So I went through, and of course I didn't know it was zipper at the beginning. I'm like, I have no idea how to update this thing, so that's why it prompted me to Google. And so that was the only difficulty I had was because I didn't have the knowledge. It wasn't anything to do with the actual distro. It was just my lack of knowledge on this version of Linux that that's why I'm very grateful that I got a chance to actually use this version because it forced me to learn. But now once I got it installed and everything's running, like I said, all my stuff came up, no problem. Everything's working fine, and unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but gratefully, I did not have any issues with the installation or the usage of this version of Linux, other than lack of knowledge.
So the dev says that it's different from Ubuntu. It uses root instead of sudo. In Calamares, it gives you a checkbox to set the root password same as your user account you created. So it does let you know, but not directly, I guess. I mean, indirectly during the installer.
Yeah, I did see that, and I did check mark that little thing. I was like, yeah, I want to use the same password. It's just easier for my brain.
Yeah, I think I read some discussion on whether sudo or going to root is better on like what's more secure. After spending hours of reading it, Like to me, it seems like you're splitting hairs one way or the other. I don't know. Like there's arguments for both, but
Yeah.
maybe somebody who knows better than me can speak to that.
I just do sudo these days because it's muscle memory, and anything that's different is, in my book, wrong because it breaks everything that I've done. But the only distro that I know where you have to sudo root is Slackware that does that.
So when you do sudo, like for me, when I do updates, I'll do sudo zip or dup, so for the distribution update, and that works, but you do have to put in your root password, not your user password. You can change that if you go to like, I think SUVI or VISU, I forget what the command is to actually edit that, but you can change those rules if you want it to be more like Ubuntu. That is a thing. I just don't know. I just haven't done it because it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, I lock the root account anyway.
I think using,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
Aris.
No, go ahead, Con. Go ahead.
Using sudo, I've noticed just something I've observed is if you come back and type something in, sudo's not working anymore, so it does cut off after a certain amount of time. But if you log in as root, I think you stay as root till you log back out, right?
Right.
Well,
You know what I mean?
correct.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So
But the danger there being that if you forget that you're logged in as root and you do something crazy, you could delete something that you really truly don't want to delete.
yeah, that's why running sudo is like it does get you out of root privileges after. I don't know how long
Yeah,
it
it times
is.
out after some time. Yeah.
15
It
minutes
times
or
yeah, it
30
times
minutes.
out. Yeah.
Well, the good thing is if you're running on openSUSE, you have the rollback feature. So even if you really, mess up your system, it's very easy to roll it back. So every time you do every time you do an update, whatever, it actually takes a snapshot or a copy on write snapshot, whatever, and you can roll back to before you decided to do something crazy.
Yeah, see, I'm on when something like that happens, something breaks in the system and it requires a rollback, I'm on the nuke and pave path. At that point, I'm not gonna roll back. I'm just gonna nuke and pave.
Nuke and pave.
Yeah. I
Way
keep
to
my home drive elsewhere, and I let the SSD have the OS drive partitions.
I mean, I keep all my files and my important documents and all that stuff on a separate system. From I have backups for my backups for my backups. Let's put it that way. I have most of my important stuff up in two different clouds, a external hard drive, and then two separate internal hard drives, one on my Mac and one on my PC, away from everything else that I use. That way, if I do have to nuke and pave a system, I don't lose anything important other than the operating system.
Well, I will say, from my perspective, the ability to roll back has saved my rear several times. So, because I don't like to nuke and pave if I can help it. Alexa,
So
Aris, what was that?
I just wanted to mention what the dev said. He says that he doesn't have a strong readpoint on sudo. It's just what the openSUSE does, so he just defaults to that. And it says in openSUSE, you can open GUI or XApps with sudo, and you need something like gnome su app name or su root, and in this case, Gecko Linux just follows that. I think some people don't like sudo because it's a big program. There's a lot of lines to it. It has a lot of options. That's one school of thought, and you could say that root's always there to begin with, so you don't need sudo because of that. And there's also another school of thought that says you don't need sudo or root. You should use do as, and because it's a much smaller program that could potentially have less vulnerabilities in the future. So I just wanted to point that out.
That's fair. I just let the smart people at openSUSE tell me what to do. They kind of guide me. So, any other areas you found difficult? Anyone else had one they want to fire in over there on some areas that they had some challenges? I know, Thomas, are you almost done installing, or where are you?
Yeah, I've done installing and doing my bit of testing real quick. The one thing I want to say first off is I ran the rolling Pantheon version.
Okay.
And people here will know me and Pantheon don't normally get along very well.
Oh,
But
it's a good choice.
but that's typically due to the fact that I'm trying Pantheon on elementary, not another distro. So I will go ahead and say off the bat, thank you so much for having the maximize and minimize buttons. Every other time I try Pantheon, it's just the close button. There's no maximize and minimize. The fact they are there by default is fantastic.
Just so you know, you don't need those, according to
Whoever makes that decision is wrong, and I will fight them.
All right, no fighting here. This may be a saloon. It's a clean saloon, all right? The Linux saloon.
Other than that, it was fine. Otherwise, the one small hiccup I had, I use Bitwarden as my password manager. And I was trying to connect to my NAS, which uses SSH. I don't know my SSH password off the top of my head because it's like 100, 200 characters long. I just store it in Bitwarden. Copy, paste, done. I prefer, if I'm installing the Bitwarden app, to use it as a snap.
Sure.
Unfortunately, snap is not available in the openSUSE repos.
Actually, it is.
And I did not see it when I did.
No, it's not in the official
another
repository
that's not
Right.
added by default.
Right.
But I did sudo zipper search snapd. It didn't come up either way.
Right.
So that is probably more on openSUSE than it is on the Gecko Linux devs. But
Correct.
for a future version, I would advise having that repository added by default. Maybe not add snap by default because not everybody likes snap, but maybe add that repository so if somebody does want snap, they can do that.
Well,
thankfully, Bitwarden is available as a Flatpak, so no biggie.
So there are instructions maintained for openSUSE on the snapcraft.io site. So if you go through that, they actually have the process of adding the repository, enabling it,
right,
and then doing
and
what's necessary to make the snaps available. I use right now the this version of OBS I'm using is actually the OBS snap on openSUSE Tumbleweed. So
I did see those instructions. I just went Flatpak, or I had already gotten the Flatpak installed by that point. SB, your question about no RPM available from Bitwarden. I prefer using Bitwarden in a containerized environment. That way it's more secure than using it as a native package. It is one of the like 3 things that I exclusively want in one of those universal packaging formats. So
you could
I prefer. Go ahead.
You could also add it to Firefox as an extension, which is how I use it most of the time.
Right. And on my personal system, I do that because 9 times out of 10, it's right there. It's far more convenient. But I figured I'd put it through its paces, try it as an app, and yeah. I will say though, it did hook up to my NAS over SSH super easily. Not an issue there. Nemo fought with me a little bit when I was doing that, so I don't know what file manager they're using. It looks like Nautilus on Pantheon, but I'm not familiar with Pantheon, so I'm probably wrong about that. I could not find the settings in that file manager, so it was single click instead of double click, which is an abomination. Double click for the win, but that is personal preference, 100%. So whatever, you do you.
Well, Linux is adjustable software. Like an adjustable chair, you can adjust to whatever you need. That's how I look at it.
Right. It's just I couldn't find the settings in order to change that.
The SB says it's a Pantheon file manager.
Okay, so it's Pantheon specific. It's probably a fork of Nautilus, honestly, because it looks like a fork. Yeah. Other than that, it looks fantastic. I'm at the point with it where I would have previously suggested elementary to someone, I'm suggesting this instead because it is far more intuitive out of the box. So yeah. Oh, one other nice thing. I don't know if it's a Gecko Linux specific thing or Calamares, but there was a little drop down where it asked about how much or how you wanted your swap set up when doing the partitioning. And it said something like no swap, swap on Hibernate, or swap for Hibernate, swap but not for Hibernate, and then just swap as a file. Fantastic, especially just defaulting to the swap as a file. I don't know. It doesn't make it clear if the swap for Hibernate is as a partition or as something else, and I didn't mess with it too much. But the fact it is going to the file, which I'm assuming is going to be large enough that you can do Hibernate by default, I like. And I also like that you can change it right there in the auto partitioner. So
yeah, that's a new thing in Calamares that got added as an option for distributions to be able to set that, you know, as an option, a drop down option for everybody. So that's pretty neat.
Gotcha. Okay. I don't use Calamares very often, so I wasn't sure.
Yep. It's fairly new though. You're going to need a fairly new version.
Right. And it looks like the software in this is very, very new, because I even checked and it's running kernel 5.16 already.
Oh yeah.
Which it's rolling, so not surprising. But yeah, otherwise, fantastic. I prefer, if I'm going Pantheon, I prefer this over Elementary any day. So good job. Keep it up.
That's fair.
So I just wanted to point out how Nate said that you can look up on Snapcraft.io if you want instructions how to install Snap. You can also look up in flathub.org for Flatpak if you want to install it a different distro that doesn't have it by default.
I would say what would be nice, and I haven't played with Pantheon on openSUSE in a long time, actually ever. So it would be nice to have the elementary store. I know it has a lot of the stuff is Flatpaks now, and so it would be nice to have that, just to have that, you know, be able to access the apps essentially. But that's just me in my opinion. The elementary team, they had a GoFundMe or something like that some years back, and they blew past all of their objectives from what I recall. And I guess one of those like higher tier objectives was they would make it available to other distributions. I thought. I could be wrong, but that's what I remember. Somebody correct me. Somebody can fact check me on that and give me a Snopes on that one if they want. So hey Norbert, I see. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that's the same with a lot of distros, because you take Deepin for example. If you install it on anything else, you don't get the Deepin experience in the software center or the Deepin software. You know what I mean? So there's that case with a lot of distros, I think.
Sure, but I'm pretty sure there was an actual statement by the elementary team they're going to open it up to other distributions. That's why I'm thinking that. But I see Norbert, you joined us, and better late than never. I always say. I mean, that's Steve's philosophy for his stream on Sundays. So, oh, I can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Norbert.
Go ahead and work on that. I don't. Mark, did you have anything you wanted to add? I couldn't remember if you'd said something else that you were on that.
No, nothing to add.
Okay.
I still wasn't able to get the XRDP fully working, but that's probably a user issue.
I know there's some sort of a virtual desktop something protocol that's baked into YaST. I don't know if you investigated that at all, but there's a thing there. I don't know. I don't use it, so I can't really comment on it.
Yeah.
In the settings, it seemed to be a VNC server, and I usually stay away from that for I like a little bit higher security than some of those.
Okay, that's fair enough.
I may be able to do a VNC through an SSH tunnel, but I haven't approached that yet.
The OS stacks seem to have played a little trick on me.
It happens.
Yep. It is a Debian testing system. I tried to move to PipeWire, but then I couldn't control. I couldn't toggle my microphone via the PV control command. This hotkey I said. I mean, it's supposed to be a drop-in replacement to Pulse Audio, so I'm not sure. Maybe it's just a work in progress in Debian, but now I'm back on Pulse Audio for the time being. I couldn't and didn't or rather, I didn't participate in the Gecko Linux exploration. But speaking of elementary OS, I'm not really following their development, but from the heavy use of Flatpaks, to me, it seems like they kind of want to make their base distro not matter as much, because the base distro is just there to provide well, a base for their platform. And I think at this point, or maybe in the future, it would even be, I mean, even if they were to rebase their distro on something like Fedora or openSUSE, it wouldn't really make much of a difference, because all of their tools and everything related to their platform is pretty much distro agnostic.
Any other thoughts that they wanted to kick out there on Gecko Linux before we?
I did notice one thing that I'm very, very happy about. It's using PipeWire.
Oh.
Yes.
Mhm.
Thank you. I love PipeWire.
Not even Tumbleweed itself is doing that. When I installed Tumbleweed, I had to install. I mean, it did install PipeWire, but it was still using Pulse Audio for the audio server. So I had to install the PipeWire-Pulse package, or Pulse Audio. I'm not sure what it's called, but there was a weird bug that is, as far as I know, it has been around for multiple months on Tumbleweed, where it, for some reason, it pulls the micro OS pattern as a dependency, which has no business with the audio stack at all. So
that was addressed in
installed,
the mailing list, and so they're actually working on correcting that. So that's a work in progress.
Yeah.
So far as I know, the only other distro that uses PipeWire by default for its dedicated audio server, it doesn't have it like next to Pulse, is Fedora. The next version of Draugr OS will, but that's still in beta. So
I know another one that it sort of does, but doesn't at the same time, because on Arch, if you use the Arch install script that is included in the ISO, it will ask you whether you want to choose Pulse Audio over PipeWire, but the default answer will be PipeWire, which is interesting.
Okay.
And also,
I haven't done an Arch install in forever, so I didn't know.
Yeah,
and if you do the installation the Arch way, and then when if you install GNOME on top of Arch, it will pull PipeWire instead of Pulse Audio without even asking you. So that kind of makes PipeWire default on Arch, in my opinion.
SB actually just posted in the YouTube chat. He actually includes a custom PipeWire config in its PipeWire, which is copied from USR share PipeWire and then modified with SED for low latency 5.3 millisecond audio support. I'm assuming that's like out of the box default low latency audio, which is fantastic if you can tell.
So
don't get me wrong. In those instances where you need low latency audio, like if you're someone like Scrapjaw, it can be fantastic. Someone like me, I can't tell the difference. I have the farthest ears from audiophile. I tell you, I cannot tell the difference. But
I don't have the chat in front of me. Is this a RDNR specific modification, or is this something that's actually implemented already in some distro?
This is probably something specific to Gecko Linux.
So actually, Nazi I says that PipeWire is default on openSUSE Tumbleweed now as well.
Oh, cool.
So must be a recent change.
I wonder if Solus has already ported over to it, because they would seem like one that would have done that already.
I should check that out.
I know what my distro challenge for next week is.
Well, there you go, Solus.
I know that on Tumbleweed around a month ago when I tried it, it was still on GNOME. It was pulling Pulse Audio as a default.
Well,
so it must be a very recent change.
Constantly rolling.
Yeah. I went over to PipeWire for the sole reason that I can use Jack utilities now with PWJack, whereas before, Jack and the accessibility stack do not get along at all.
In what way?
For whatever reason, when you start Jack up, it kills the screen reader's audio.
Oh.
So I have
Interesting.
no feedback on what I'm doing on my computer until I reboot.
Oh, that's interesting. I wonder why.
Yeah, but
I wonder why the screen reader can't plug in a jack. I wonder what the. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter with
I,
PipeWire. It should be. It's a non-issue now.
I don't know, but the one utility that I'm trying right now, Overtone, doesn't seem to be working. I don't know if that's a jack configuration issue or if that's something to do with Overtone's stack of what is it, Super Collider and Java. I don't know who's the issue there, but it times out and I get no audio whatsoever. So I guess that's my project for the week, is to get that to work.
Well, cool. Well, I hope you work on that, and then you can keep us updated in the Telegram chat if you're interested. And if you're not part of the Telegram group, it's telegram.linuxsaloon.com for those that like to join in on the chat during the week and contribute some other
Does
ideas.
Telegram still require a phone number? Because I don't
Yeah.
have access to the old phone number that it used to use.
If
I
not,
use Discord though.
then you can go to discord.linuxsaloon.com and you can contribute to the chat there.
You have a? Is there a matrix?
There is not. At this time, probably not going to do that because it's just I use Matrix all the time, but there's a Destination Linux network Matrix room. So if you want to do, it's just easier to use that. And I don't want to do any bridging because bridging, I think, has a less than stellar user experience at this time. So nothing against those that do bridge.
I've heard more people not the users complain, but the people on the other end complain, especially where IRC is concerned. But
really?
If it works, it works.
All right. Did anybody else have any other comments you wanted to make about Gecko Linux before we kind of give it a rating? And I changed the rating system a little bit.
I had a really weird experience. It's sort of semi-related to Gecko because it's present both on Tumbleweed and Gecko rolling.
Okay.
So since I've been dual booting Windows, along with Windows, at least 2 distros at the same time because I like to tinker, and having 2 distros at the same time makes it it's kind of a safety net in case one of them would get messed up. And what I do is I use Refined, which is a really nice boot menu only for UEFI. It's not a bootloader, but you can boot from there directly to it, and from it you can select the bootloader. But the thing is, the Linux kernel itself has a built-in bootloader. So Linux from Refined, I can bootstrap the Linux system without ever using grub. And I had a couple of weird experiences, especially when you multi-boot, grub tends to either get messed up or distros fight over grub. So I decided to not use grub for dual booting at all. Refined is very nice because you have Refined on my EFI partition. None of the distros or none of the systems ever get to touch that. They don't even have any chance of fighting over control. Although Windows attempted to switch itself back into first place a couple of times. And so it wanted to do a disk check, and when this check was finished, I rebooted. It was default into Windows. So anyway, instead of having all the grub, so I just have a one-line entry with the kernel parameters for each distro on that boot folder of a given distro. And I had a very weird experience that is present on Tumbleweed and Gecko rolling, but not on Leap. So it must be the newer kernel or something in the newer kernel when it wouldn't show up as the kernel. So when I install Tumbleweed and I still have Refined as the first boot entry, it will list openSUSE as grub entry as a bootloader, so I can go from Refined to grub then boot Tumbleweed. But it doesn't list, it cannot find the kernel itself, which is weird because out of 10 distros or 9, it just works. But roughly 10% of them, it just doesn't work. And because it works on Leap, I assume that somehow during the compilation of the newer kernels in openSUSE, they must have left something out so the kernel itself cannot function as a basic bootloader.
So I wonder, because I know that openSUSE is tied pretty well to grub with the snapshot thing. Does that interfere with the usage of being able to access?
I'm not sure because I was using AutoVinaX for file system.
Okay.
Does that matter or not? Because I mean,
I don't know. I've never-
when I know that I won't have an installation around for long, I don't really see any reason to use Btrfs. Actually, I never really use Btrfs and snapshots because I tend to disrupt quite often. I might try to do that, but on the distros that I daily drive, there is not really an option to have them set up by default, so I might have to look into doing that. But I'm not sure how. I mean, I'm not sure if it's that integrated with Grub, because in the installer there's even an option for not installing any bootloader. So if I select unmanaged, it won't even install Grub. But then nothing will show up at all in the refine because it still cannot see the kernel.
Yeah, I use Btrfs because it's fail safe, part of my fail safes and whatnot.
Yeah.
All right,
I also
so
consider using Btrfs, sorry, for the compression, but I realize I'm not really that in need for file system compression because I'm not really running low on space. So anyway, I've been trying to find some sort of solution to my refine problem. I might consider writing to a refine developer because I don't really see any specific issues. So I don't see any this mentioned anywhere. I might make an update if I find anything.
Okay.
I know most people just go with Grab, but refine is far more convenient. I think it's simpler and it's safer.
Did anybody else have anything they wanted to throw in out there before we go into why you should give it a spin, and then also get into our new rating system? It's actually a completely useless rating system, but I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
No, I didn't use it enough to do anything. So,
nope. Rick, what do you have to say?
Well, I got a couple of items I wanted to mention.
Sure, yeah, please do.
One is that I noticed the long-term support kernel on the Leap version is 5.3. So that gives you a range 5.3 to 5.16 is kind of the range of the kernel. So also my son's desktop or gaming desktop out Legion out in the living room. Yeah, I had a grub an issue with the Gruda install on it. So I said, what the heck, I'll just install Gecko on it and see how it runs. So I installed Gecko on it, and it picked up his NVIDIA driver without me doing anything. So that all worked pretty good.
Was it Leap or Tumbleweed?
Tumbleweed. Yeah, so for a gaming distro, it probably needs something more,
because
powerful.
Leaf seems to have even more outdated packages than the current Debian stable. That may be because of they are very close to the end of the cycle. I'm not sure.
Right. Yeah, they Leap is more like Debian in their regard.
So the Leap kernel that they use, they backport a lot of the newer things into it. It's just the core components of it are basically staying aligned with whatever SUSE Linux Enterprise it has. So the kernels are compatible, but they do have a bunch of backports, like hardware enablement and such is taken care of with the Leap kernel every year when they update that. So there was a big article by somebody I read. I think Richard Brown, who basically says the version numbers are meaningless. So
Yeah,
I've been thinking. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, when I was checking the NVIDIA drivers, see what I installed one GeForce 600 plus, and then there's another GeForce 600 plus. I don't know which one was older, which one was newer, but it wasn't clear from just the file itself. But at any rate, I thought it was probably pretty good overall. It works. Dedicated to NVIDIA driver, so.
What was the version number?
It didn't have a version number attached to the file I looked at.
They have the name, the NVIDIA drivers, they give them the packages weird names. It was like G05, G05 at the end of the package name when I installed.
I'd have to look at that and see.
Maybe there's a G06, but I'm not sure what NVIDIA driver versions those correspond to.
All right. That's all I had.
I had thought a bit about what use case Leap is intended for, because the way I see it, Leap is to SUSE Enterprise, essentially what the derivatives are to Red Hat. It's basically, they are very close, but not for enterprise use. So is that pretty much what Leap is supposed to be?
So Leap and SLE. Leap is basically an open source version of SLE, like an open free version of SLE. So for all intents and purposes, it is essentially the same. Yep. So they're so basically Leap has additional community packages on top of it. But if you want to move so the idea is if you're running openSUSE Leap on a server or something like that, and you want to make this you want to move it to a SUSE Linux Enterprise, that transition is very easy. So that's the point of it. So it's it's a very hardened release of Linux. So version 15.4 will be coming out in June. So there'll be some refreshing of some of the packages. I don't know exactly what.
The number system is a bit confusing. So how is it going to be based on a snapshot of SUSE Enterprise? I assume the next one comes out almost simultaneously with the Leap. So are those going to be based on a snapshot of Tumbleweed? And if yes, how old of a packages should we expect?
Tumbleweed is the upstream to Leap.
Enterprise.
Yeah, an enterprise. But I don't know what it's going to be based on. It varies per application. So I couldn't tell you. If I said anything, it would probably be wrong. So I'm not going to.
I think I know that the RHEL 9 is going to be based on Fedora 34, which is around 9 months old at this point. So I maybe more than 6 months old packages, but less than a year old is what I'm guessing for the next version of Leap.
Okay.
It's just a guess.
All right. We're very quickly running out of time. So I want to go on to, for those that have tried it, I'd like to get, why should somebody give it a spin if you have any reasons as to why. And I have a rating system for it. So there's 4 different ratings. So thinking of a saloon in the well is actually where you have the cheap liquors, and then you also have craft or like craft beers, specialty, and top shelf. So the idea here is when you give your rating, it's whatever your rating wants to be. It's pretty meaningless because sometimes you go in for a well, sometimes you want a top shelf, sometimes you just want a craft. So I'm just gonna take the vote, take the tallies, and we'll just go from there. So Eris, what would you give us? A well, a craft, a specialty, or a top shelf?
Craft or specialty, I don't know the difference between that, but I would say one of those.
So specialty would be a special mix. Like when you have special mixes that are on on the chalkboard. I used to write these all the time on the chalkboard, like have some special drink of the day.
Okay.
And a craft would be like a local brewery has a special, they're one of their beverages.
Yeah, I would go with craft, I think.
Craft, okay. All right. It's a meaningless vote, so that's why we're doing it this way, because you can't hurt anybody's feelings. Thomas.
What was the second from the top one? Specialty?
Yeah, specialty. They're not really in any order necessarily. It's just it's whatever you feel like.
I'm gonna go with a specialty because I think it was really good, but I hadn't heard of it before. So it's like the hidden gem.
Okay, I like it. All right, Steve, what ranking would you give it?
I probably would say a craft because it is especially. It's not for newbies. A little bit too much there for that.
It's an acquired taste. It's an acquired taste. Some crafts have an acquired taste. Okay. Got it. I love it. I know, Hunter, you said you didn't try it, but if you were to give an evaluation based on what you've heard here today, how would you place this?
I'd call it a specialty.
All right. I like it. Excellent. Jinda.
Yeah, I kind of, for a new user, I would kind of go on the lower end on the well drink, but on a seasoned user like the graybeard that I am, it was fantastic. I'd probably go up towards the top shelf. It was okay. There was no issues with it. I didn't have any problems with it. I mean, I know where to find some of the data. I know what to install. I know what to fix. A new user wouldn't.
Excellent. I thank you for that. Colin, how would you rate it?
I'd say craft, because I
Okay.
have to say that it's something you might want to try, but you're not sure if it's your required taste.
Okay, I like it. Rick.
Yeah, I would probably give it a top shelf rating.
Okay.
I mean, I stuck it on my computer over here, so.
Excellent. Jason.
Well, I would say I'll give it a craft. It's kind of like
Okay.
a fine IPA. It's that bitter taste is not for everybody.
Perfect. I love it. Mark.
I'll give it a craft. I did get the XRDP running eventually, and so that will bring me back for another order at the bar.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Norbert.
Well, I only tried it very briefly because I mainly was interested at the time when I tried it. It was weeks before it was even selected as the distro of the week, and I was interested in how they implemented the calamares because I wasn't aware of the other, like how Pacman is enabled and other things. But now, and I also wasn't aware about all the desktop environments, the less common desktop environments they offer, like Pantheon. And based on what I heard here, I will definitely try that Pantheon ISO. But what I'm thinking is because it is very close to openSUSE, then my rating should reflect in how it differs from openSUSE. And if I were to rate openSUSE itself, I was thinking maybe it should be a craft because it's like a local specialty of Germany, and it seems to be a very European German thing. But Tumbleweed itself, at least, if I take aside my very specific problem with it, that I have never seen mentioned anywhere else, it would be a top shelf. And because I like to customize stuff, so Gecko wasn't really for me, but I really do appreciate how well they implemented, especially in installation. So it would only be right to give it the same rating of top shelf. My only concern is that it is intended to be beginner friendly, but I'm not sure if a beginner user would handle this level of rolling release really well, because there seem to be a lot of updates.
Yep, that's fair.
When I tried Tumbleweed, I think I got even more frequent updates than on Arch, which is just interesting.
Well, the fun thing with Tumbleweed is you don't have to update all the time. In fact, the server I have, because I'm lazy, I use Tumbleweed. And so I only update it maybe every 4 to 8 weeks, somewhere in there. I don't think about it, and it doesn't have, somehow Zipper's able to solve it and just jam the updates in, and it always works. So I've been running Tumbleweed on it since late 2019 without any hiccups or issues. So
why Tumbleweed for a server?
Because I told you I was lazy. Specifically because I'm lazy.
Yes, but is it more ready out of the box than, for example, Ubuntu server and things, or even?
Great question.
I've never run my server, so I'm not really at home in the server space. But I do know that mostly people either use Ubuntu server or something like CentOS or Arma Linux, I think.
Sure. So the reason I use openSUSE is because I'm familiar with the ecosystem. I like all the tools that they put into it, and so I can access anything I need. Like YaST. YaST is a big reason why I use it. But the reason I use Tumbleweed over Leap is purely because I'm lazy. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Why does it take less effort to use Tumbleweed than Leap?
Because I don't have to think about it. So I don't have running like nothing's critical, but so I have to make sure that I'm disciplined and I move the Leap versions up, once a year. And there's a process that's involved in doing that to make sure you go through all those checks. And so it's not a huge deal, but it's just I'm lazy.
But if you consider how often you have to update it, that adds up, and it's more effort than updating once a year.
Probably, but one I don't have to think about, and the other I do. So lazy. I'm a bad sysadmin, and I'm lazy. I would never hire me as a sysadmin. Okay, I don't know, Scrap. I don't know if do you have your Zoom issues worked out? Are you good to go? Welcome. All right. So as far as the tallies go, I'm actually going to give it also. I'm going to actually give it a top shelf because I don't know how else to rate it. So it looks like we got six votes for craft, 2 for specialty, and 3 for top shelf. And what does that mean? I'm not really sure. But that's the whole idea of the rating system, because the reality is back to the original statement. We're exploring a distribution. We're not going to poo-poo on it. It's always we're going to have fun with Linux. Linux is supposed to be fun. Computers are supposed to be fun, and so that's what we're doing. But
I had an idea for another rating.
Okay.
It would be a wipe. As far as I'm aware, a wipe is when they wipe off the drink that's spilled on the bar.
See, but that,
when that adds up, maybe like to a glass, that's the wipe. So a wipe would be a distro that is so bad that you wipe the drive immediately after you try it.
Right, but see, I won't ever.
It's kind of poo-pooing on the distro, so
that's
poo-pooing,
really and I won't do that because I really believe that distributions are a labor of love for people, and I want to make sure that it's that we're giving constructive feedback for everything, because technology is awesome, but I think people are more awesomer, and I think we have to make sure we always uplift people, and we want to raise them up and say, these are the great things you did. This is what we appreciate. Here's some areas that need some improvement, but I want to encourage people to continue to develop and continue to explore and continue to do technology, because I never want to see somebody like after doing this, unless it's maybe Colin, and one of his ISOs. But I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding, Colin. But I want to make sure we're always trying to uplift and edify people always. That's kind of that's a hard rule of mine. It's a non-negotiable for me, actually. But so for next week, for the distro exploration, I want to move on to that. So the 2 that I have on the list right now are Solus and MX. Now I did also get a Linux FX out there, and someone said, who said that? Look at doing is it Linux FX or something like that? We did Windows FX not too long ago, but apparently
that's the same thing.
They had an update. I think they finished up the Windows 11. I think the one when we tried it was a beta.
Okay.
I think now it's actually released.
So we may want to put that on hold maybe for a little while, just because we don't want to overdo it. But then, do you have any other suggestions? Because I want to wear it on Slackware. I know that the Linux user space is doing MX Linux, so that's an option.
I was going to say I vote for MX Linux. It is one of the top distros on DistroWatch right now, and a lot of my log users like it and use it.
Well, I help with some documentation on MX Linux. So I'm a little biased on that one too.
I also like it, but it's important to keep in mind that DistroWatch only measures the number of clicks each distro gets on their site. So it's very possible that people go there and immediately click on the first one because they're curious what the first one could be, and it's a positive feedback loop that the first one is more likely to get clicked on.
Right.
And MX seems to get a lot of hate because of it, and they accuse them of using bots. And I really like MX, and in an ironic way, I would be really happy to see it dethroned, because then it would still be around the top, but it wouldn't get this unjustified hate. But
speaking of,
so Solus would get a lot more clicks if we chose that one.
The reason why I would vote for Solus is recently I decided to look at distros and compare what version of the NVIDIA proprietary driver they have, because that's a very important factor for me to narrow down the list of distros I could potentially use as a driver. And I noticed that Solus, while they for some reason have been holding back on the kernel version, I think when they're on 5.13 still, they were the first distro that packaged and made available the new NVIDIA 510 version beta drivers. So that made me kind of interested in trying Solus again. And I mean, that would be my personal reason for voting it. I'm also really happy with MX, so either one would be. But yeah, Solus would get more clips.
I have to say,
go ahead, somebody.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Colin.
Yeah, I was going to say, MX, having used Gecko Linux, I have to say that their YaST control center has a lot of similarities to what MX Tools has as well, because they've got a lot of control for the background stuff as well in MX. So yeah, that would be very interesting.
Especially the MX package installer.
Yeah.
Who else was that chimed in there?
Hunter.
Yep. I was saying I was nominating Void.
Void Linux. Have we done Void before?
A long time ago, several years, I think, at this point.
Okay.
I'm very impartial because I've been daily driving it for more than half a year. So that I suddenly got excited.
We could also, not to nominate too many, but we could also do the Arch installer, which we've never done, I think, since they've launched the command line installer for Arch.
Okay.
Now that's an interesting one as well. I was going to ask, Nate, do we have space for Void?
Yeah, I think so. I see what you did there. And yes.
Groan.
It's the hot weather.
It must be, yeah, because it's freezing here.
It is.
Yeah. All right. So, well, let's not add any to that list anymore. But if there are other distribution suggestions, feel free to send them to suggestions@linuxsaloon.com, and I will make sure to put those on the list and bring them up next time we do this. But we are almost out of time here, so I want to make sure I want to get to at least one news story that I think is relevant. So we're thinking Solus. I haven't tried Solus in a while. It's been 2018, I think, since I've done Solus. Maybe 19. MX, or perhaps the Arch installer. If you had to vote,
I'm voting for Solus due to the. I'm voting for Solus due to the sheer fact that I already have it downloaded and installed into a VM.
Biased.
I'll go Solus. I reckon. I haven't tried Solus for quite a long time myself, to be honest.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
I'm voting MX. I'm voting MX for the following week.
I have an idea. How about everyone writes down the preference list? So put their preferred list in the first place and the second and third, and we do that. I'm not sure what the name of that voting system is, but it's an elimination round. So we look at the first ones, which register gets the least amount of votes is out, and those people's second votes get added to the next round. This get added.
Well,
so,
that's a really good idea, and the caveat to that is as Linux user space is also testing distros, and Dan and Leo they join us from time to time, and I want to make sure that we time certain things with them. So there's a few other factors that kind of pull in there, but I do like that idea.
They had the latest distro episode of Linux user space was this week, Monday.
They did
Nix OS, which we did cover before.
Yes, but so the 1 week from now they will have a topic-based episode. So their MX Linux episode will release around 3 weeks from now.
Right. So probably best to do MX around then, and then I'm thinking they're gonna do Slackware when it line with their Slackware as well. So I think Solus. I heard enough Solus to say I'm good. Let's do Solus. Unless someone has any heartburn with it, like some serious heartburn. Nope. Okay, so maybe Rick has some heartburn with it. Okay, no, he doesn't have heartburn.
They nuked one of my laptops. I obviously have heartburn, but I'm giving them a chance.
All right, so
maybe let's see hands up how many people vote for Solus.
I'm gonna vote for Solus.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna have. Look at that, it's everybody. Okay.
Yep.
So Solus for next week. Excellent.
Let me ask you, do they have a more recent release than? It looks like their release is from July last year.
Well, it's
a rolling release distro, so just like install it, update, you're good.
All right.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I like about rolling release distros is the ISO doesn't matter, especially if you can bootstrap it.
Well, that's kind of, it depends on the distro, because if you don't re-snapshot every once in a while, then things like if you are deciding to switch from X11 to Wayland or from Pulse to PipeWire, you're not going to be able to make those changes. You cannot, there is no such thing as a pure rolling release distro because of that. You're going to be something of a hybrid. You have
But for example, on Arch, if I just am using a Pulse Audio and then I do and try to install the PipeWire dash Pulse package, it will notify me that this is in conflict with Pulse Audio, which one of them do you want to keep? So
right, which is fine.
Yeah, that's one of the things that annoys me about Pac-Man, honestly, is this conflicts with PipeWire Pulse is in conflict with
I mean,
Pulse Audio.
no, PipeWire itself is not in conflict. PipeWire dash Pulse is because both that and Pulse Audio are for starting a Pulse Audio server, and you cannot have them try to start it at the same time. Zipper does the same thing. So when I installed PipeWire dash Pulse on Zipper, it notified me whether I want to remove Pulse Audio because otherwise it wouldn't let me install it.
I believe our host had a story. Nate, you wanted to get to a story or
Well,
something?
I did want to get to some quick housekeeping first. So the Linux Saloon logo contest is through the end of the month. So logo at linuxsaloon.com if you have any logo ideas. I've received quite a lot of logos that I have to go through and decide, but a lot of great stuff that I've received already. If you have any ideas, we just make sure it's got to be like an SVG format, something I can access with like Inkscape, but I don't care what tools you use other than that, as long as I can access it. So logo at linuxsaloon.com. And yes, Colin, I have yours. It's in my repository of
No,
ideas.
it's not SVG though. I don't know how to get it to SVG. Can you do that in GIMP? You export to SVG? I don't
No.
You can upload or you can open a PNG or JPG in Inkscape and then export it as an SVG.
Oh,
Don't
that's
do
cool.
it though. Don't do it though, because what it's doing is it's basically just embedding your image into an SVG, and it's still a rasterized image. It's not actually an SVG. It's a hack.
I'm not
it
familiar
doesn't
with
work.
Inkscape, but I know for Adobe Illustrator has an option for converting a bitmap image into vector. It's sometimes
That's
works.
bitmap. That's not rasterized.
As long as I can open it in
converts
Inkscape,
it into
that's all that matters.
into points and pairs, so it converts it into a proper vector graphic.
Yep.
Sometimes it looks like, I'm not sure if Inkscape can do that.
Yep. All right. So anyway, that's going through the end of the month. There's a $100 gift card that's going to be attached to that, so that'll hopefully encourage some good submissions. All right. So before we are just about out of time, but I wanted to go with this. So the GNOME Foundation made. Actually, let me back up here. So I want to muddle through the news, the Linux news. As always, a big thanks to Michael from This Week in Linux for mixing up a great flight of topics. And I'm going to choose one of those of the flight, which is the exciting FlatHub updates in the store. So have any of you read this? I'll put the article in from the GNOME Foundation in the chat if you'd like to check that out. But the GNOME Foundation made a blog post talking about the future of FlatHub and what they've planned to make it a better experience for users and developers. So they want to add a process to verify first-party apps on FlatHub, so uploaded by a developer or an authorized representative. This is a fair complaint that people have about FlatHub because right now there's no way to tell if it's officially packaged by a developer or a third-party packaging. So the plan is to publish a separate repository that contains only the verified first-party uploads without any of the community-contributed applications, as well as providing a repository with only free and open source applications, allowing users to choose to have a curated experience if they want. And, very neat, make it possible for those developers to collect donations or subscriptions. So creating the user and developer login system to manage your apps will also be good for future enhancements, such as managing tokens for direct binary uploads, and so forth, and making it easier to publish apps from various systems like Electron, for example. So I'm excited to see many of these. I want to know if there's any thoughts that you may have on that. What do you think? These changes here. How do you think that's going to affect the Linux app ecosystem going forward? Do you think we're going to see some more developers do this? So, to use Flatpak to monetize their applications?
If you had asked me about half a year ago, I was kind of against it because my mistake was that I only installed one Flatpak at a time, and I got horrified by how big the packages were. But then I heard one of the Android developers talk on Linux user space. I think it was either Linux user space or DLN, but how the majority of those Flatpaks only share maybe 5 or so runtimes. And then I decided to install a dozen Flatpaks, and I was pleasantly surprised how effective it was. And so yeah, right now I'm running Zoom as a Flatpak because I didn't really want to use the native package for reasons, and things like Microsoft Teams, and it's great because it doesn't really matter what this run on.
Yep.
And the fact that it doesn't need systemd, so I can so Void doesn't officially package Discord, for example, but because it doesn't require systemd, I can just use the Flatpak of it. So that's really nice.
Yep.
So the gist of the story is that they're going to make it so they're actually somehow checked that they're okay to use, or what was it again?
Yeah, they have like a curated experience, and then they're gonna have like first party apps on FlatHub as well, so that those are in a separate group as well.
But even if something is not verified, but it's still, I assume it's still good to use because someone put it on FlatHub.
Right. So unverified will still be there as well, but they're going to be, in my understanding by reading this, is that they're going to be like on a separate, kind of broken out separately, so that you have a community repository, you have a first party repository, and so they can have like a curated experience out of it.
I really think Flatpaks are really moving forward right now. They seem to be quite popular. They seem to be easier to use. They seem to be able to cope with system theming and stuff a little bit easier as well. They just seem to be really, I mean, I'm using a lot of Flatpaks right now, and it doesn't matter what base I'm on. I can use my favorite applications and know that they're going to be stable, regardless whether I'm using a Debian long-term support or an Arch rolling. Those Flatpaks will just be the same as always, and you can mask them and do things like that as well, so they don't update. So yeah, I think it's a great idea.
I had problem with Flatpak theming because I've been putting my themes in /usr/share/themes, which Flatpaks cannot access at all. But after I copied them to my home folder /.themes, and I gave permission to Flatpaks to read that directory, they were just able to use them fine. But maybe give them half a year and theming would be an issue because of libadwaita. That reminds me, I wanted to ask, how big is the overlap between the GNOME developer team and the Flatpak and FlatHub team?
I have no idea.
Because apparently, because the article is in the GNOME page, so I know that there's a big overlap between the GNOME team and the Red Hat team, and there's also overlap between apparently the Flatpak team and the Red Hat team. So there might be a big overlap between Flatpak and GNOME as well.
Very possible. I couldn't say for sure. Well, we are at time. I do want to wrap this up. So does anyone have like a for last call? Is anything someone want to put out? I know Steve, you have your stream tomorrow. Could you give some details on that?
I'm gonna talk about, can you do anything on Linux?
I like that.
I'll try to be on time.
I think it would be more interesting to ask the opposite question.
What can you not do on Linux?
Well, it's can you do anything on Linux, or can you do anything on Linux? So
use Adobe Photoshop. The latest Photoshop, because I know you can sort of hack the 5 or so years old Photoshop onto with Vine, but
I don't know if Thomas, I don't know if you have any updates on Draugr OS that you want to maybe share quickly.
Well, I've been stuck at home the past few days, so I've been doing a lot of work on debugging on the system installation utility. So hopefully that'll be up to snuff.
Excellent. And Colin, didn't you have any videos that you want to promote?
No, I haven't done any. I've been messing around with other stuff.
Oh, okay. And
I've been doing bash scripting and stuff as well. I'm making my own list and my own menu of Flatpaks, and I may share that on GitHub. So just been doing other stuff, just learning stuff. So yeah, just things like that.
Nice. That's excellent. Yeah. I know, Rick, when is your next stream going to be?
Wednesday night, 6 o'clock.
That e-
Mountain time, that is.
Mountain time, 6 p.m. Mountain time, right? Or not 6 a.m.
Right,
6
6 p.m.
Mountain
I'm not up
Mountain
that
time.
early.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
I got
we'll
it.
probably been doing. Yeah, I usually do the next distro that y'all are doing because I don't want to. I'm lazy like you. I don't want to do 2 distros in 1 week.
Right, exactly.
So
Um,
might as well do one. Focus on it.
And then I don't know if anyone else had anything else you want to give. I know Norbert, you're on the Linux Mint podcast,
Yes.
and so when's your
I-
next one coming out?
Well, I finished my exam, the current exam on Thursday, and the next release on the RSS of the podcast apps will be on actually tomorrow.
Okay.
Wait, it might be tomorrow, might be Monday, but then I will by the end of next week, I will have caught up on everything, I think.
Oh, good.
On my, but we also have our next recording tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central Time. So if anyone wants to join us, we'll be live on YouTube for
Excellent.
the recording.
And
Excellent.
Nathan, I'm not a streamer or anything, but I do attend various lugs, and the one I'm in is the Atlanta Linux Enthusiast. We help people out there having trouble or just getting started. And then I also attend the Nova Lug through Meetup. So
Cool.
just call
Well,
out for them.
Well, if you have any details, always feel free to share them, and we can make sure get to push that information out. And I would love
Both
to.
are on meetup.com.
Excellent. So meetup.com, and then look up. Say those again.
Atlanta Linux Enthusiasts. It's Sundays from 3 to 6 Eastern. And then Nova Lug is typically, that's Northern Virginia lug. And that's typically Wednesdays. They have a help session to just kind of help anyone.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I don't know if Scrapchat had anything he wanted to share if your mic is working.
Is it working? Can you hear me now?
Oh,
I can hear you. Oh,
right.
yay.
Fedora's been giving me all kinds of heat, but PipeWire is different and it has some tweaks and things that it needs. And I'm going to try to get into where there's some developers and see if I'm missing something or if there's something I can give them a little like, hey, can we just single out this one device over here and lock all the clocks on it so that way it stays where it's supposed to. But
what specific software are you using for?
Well, we
can do some stuff in the after show.
Yep, we can talk in the after show on that. All right, so I want to thank you all for being part of the conversation in both the Zoom meeting and in the YouTube stream, as well as everyone for watching the show after the fact. I want to thank everyone involved in making Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also to have fun and enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back in the personal computer. Thank you for stopping by, and please remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time, see yous.
Laters.
Bye.